get out.
Pulling you back in.
They said they told you one day not to come back.
Okay,
right?
because what happened, basically, and there's not a lot of humor in this, is that I wasn't making a lot of money. I applied for a job at UCLA, which I didn't get, but then they came to me months later and said, hey, we have a temporary assignment for you. I did the math, and UCLA was going to pay me, they were going to give me benefits, and the money it would have taken me a year to make the same amount of money working for the city. So I'm like, hey, you know what? I'm going to go do this 6-month assignment, and they were like, all right, that's cool. But by the time I came back, they said I'd been gone too long, which was fine.
They handed you a 1,200 question test.
Exit. Yeah, you got to have an exit test. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, man. So that's how I got out. That's how I escaped, man.
Wow. Well, that's very insightful into that world, and I'm looking forward to hearing some stuff about Brian here. So,
can I plug my social networking?
Well, you're still going to be here for. I'm going to
hang out. So if anyone at this point still wants to talk to me or be my friend, I have a dating and relationship advice podcast I give called the Dear John podcast. Dating and relationship advice from a lifelong bachelor and commitment phobe. So that's my angle there. But you can catch me on the Twitter at John B. Moody at Twitter, and on Instagram, JBMoody716, and of course I'm on Facebook as John Moody. I'm on MySpace. I only have one friend. Everyone left me after being a parking enforcement officer. It's just Tom and I. That's it. Tom is my only friend on Facebook, on MySpace. So
I thought Tom died by now.
And you said you were a commitment phobe.
A commitment phobe, yes.
Yeah, so that was some funny stuff there from John Moody. But Brian, you've got a interesting career. We'd like to ask you some things about.
Sure.
Some really great moments. You've worked with Conan for how many years?
23 and a half.
Oh, wow. From the beginning, huh?
Well, I started 6 months in.
Wow. And and also been on Letterman, things like that. Any other top shows?
The Tonight Show and Conan and
Tonight Show when Conan was in charge, or Tonight Show with anybody
else?
No,
with Jay.
Oh, cool. Okay. So those are some great moments, but we're trying to find out about your moments that could make us say, "Oh man, that's awful."
Sure.
So, So do you have like a particularly worst stand-up gig of all time?
Well, it's funny. My daughter. I started out in Boston, and I did comedy there for years. And my daughter started college there last year, so I went back and I got together with her. I had a dinner with a bunch of Boston comics, like old friends of mine, and just hearing those stories was so much fun. And I think my favorite was there was this comic that we worked with who he was doing a show. It was this restaurant that was on a pier. So it's the restaurant's right on this pier where there's a big bay window looking out over the pier, and he's doing his act, and this car pulls up behind the restaurant, and this guy gets up and he goes to the trunk, and he takes out this hose, and he attaches the hose to his exhaust pipe, and he brings it around and puts it in the window, and my friend's on stage, and the crowd's watching behind him. Someone trying to commit suicide.
Oh my God!
Behind, so the people they call,
Oh wow!
And this is before cell phones.
Here.
And
what's the deal with the Yankees, huh? Jeez.
The comic has no idea, and the crowd's like freaking out. And this is before cell phones, but they called it 911 or whatever. The cops come and they prevent this guy from committing suicide during my friend's set.
Amazing.
Man, that is awful. I'm going to give that 2 dings.
Yeah. Okay. Wow. I'll throw in.
Yes.
2 dings, Carl. You're bleeding us dry.
I know. I don't know how I'm going to function for next week, but so
that's awesome.
But that was during a friend's set or during?
Yeah. But I mean, you worked in these terrible rooms so many times, and it's as you know, and it's mayhem sometimes, and it's also like two of my friends are doing a show where there's 6 people in the crowd, and there's this bright spotlight, and my friend Bill's on stage. There's 6 people. He finishes his set, introduces Tom. He walks off and goes to the bathroom. The 6 people get up and leave.
What? Wow.
So Tom can't see because this is bright spotlight. Mm-hmm. So 5 minutes later, Bill comes out of the bathroom, and Tom is doing his act. And Bill walks on stage, and he's like, Bill, what are you doing? He goes, Tom, there is no one here.
Wow.
He's doing it, and he thought he was killing, which was kind of the set.
With no one there?
But there's literally no one in the audience.
Did you come up in the, it's not Hop Sings?
Oh, the ding ho?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Speaking of dings, that was awful.
That was awful.
Yes, I started the Ding Ho in Cambridge, Mass.
Yeah.
And it was the club that had, Stephen Wright and Lenny Clark and Barry Crimmins and Paula Ponestone, and it was quite a scene.
How the hell did you know about the Ding Ho? Were you from
I
there?
watched that documentary, Call Me Lucky.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. There's actually a couple documentaries about this. Call Me Lucky's about Barry Crimmins, and then Fran Salamita has one about when stand-up stood out.
Right.
About the early days in Boston.
No, it's too cool.
Yeah.
Can I ask you, were you working for Conan when he got that concussion?
I was.
Can you tell us about that day?
Well, it's funny because I had left. I think it was a Friday, and I watched the comedy in the beginning, saw how the jokes went or whatever, and then I left. And what happened was he was doing a bit with Terry Hatcher, and it was some bit. I guess she's a runner or something. So there was some bit where she was going to run the marathon, or were they going to practice her running the marathon or something? So. Her and Conan were running, and they had poured water on their heads or something, or people did as they went by, like you do that with the marathon people. So he was running, so he slipped and fell and smashed his head, and was like knocked out momentarily. So they had to stop the show, and he didn't know what was up. And it was that thing like a football player, like they had to do the concussion protocol.
What day is it? Who's the
Yes.
president?
Yes, exactly, that kind of thing. And they said, they did say, who's the president? And he said, it's not Kennedy.
That Conan, he found a loophole. Can't get one past him.
Yep,
I
you
know that
what?
one for sure.
He's fine. Get him back out there.
They were like, you're right, it isn't. Get in the ambulance. So then they took him away and he was okay. But I remember getting a call from the assistant saying, the show's not on tonight, because they had to stop the show halfway through.
Have you seen the footage of it?
And a rerun.
It's on YouTube.
I think, I have. Oh, yeah. It's like his head bounces.
His eyes are looking in two different
That's
directions.
awful.
Wow.
Yeah. It's
But he's a pro. Like, he's stuck with it. And he tried to pitch it to commercial.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah. There has been a few mishaps. We had one where there was a giant water buffalo
I like where this is
that
going.
they brought on. They bring these animal experts or whatever. So it's got this giant water buffalo, and they had him get up on the thing.
I'm not sexually attracted to water buffalo.
The fact that you said you aren't, you might be.
And the thing kind of bucked, and he went flying and whatever. But he had a giant bruise that he showed us on his hip that was like, he's like, who put me on the water buffalo? So yeah, there's things. I am waiting for the day where, because these people bring on snakes or they bring on whatever, somebody's going to get, a cobra or a wildcat or something is going to slash their throat or something. Yeah,
It's a numbers game.
Yes, absolutely.
Jack Hanna should be in prison.
Well, yeah, who knows what happened to Joan Emery, but she probably just died.
25 to life.
You
That's
don't
what
want
she's
to get
doing.
Steve Irwin, that's for sure.
Yeah,
Oh boy.
that's awful.
Is that a thing?
Yes.
Yeah, that is awful. Yeah, okay. So then let's see. So, what would you say was? Do you have like a previous job outside of comedy that was like your worst job ever?
Well, I caddied at a golf course for a long time, and that's an awful job. I did that for a long time, and I do remember one time I'm caddying for this. It was these two couples, and it was one of these best ball tournaments where they all hit 4 shots, and then they go with the best shot and whatever. And they always stuck me with these terrible golfers. And I remember the two wives get up, one whiffs. One hits a tree and it goes behind. The husband gets up and hits his drive out of bounds. The next husband hits his drive out of bounds. So the best shot in the 4 is the whiff. So those are the kind of golfers that I tend to get stuck with.
Yeah, well, that's also one of the few jobs where you might be told regularly by your employer, "Wash my balls." So
No, actually, a lot of jobs are like that. But
Say it
in Hollywood, that's for sure.
yeah.
That is awful. So we'll do that. Yeah. So then, was there like ever? I mean, like a particularly bad client or anything that was like really mean or abusive or anything like that in there?
Oh, yeah. You'd have guys like that if they started playing badly, they were taking it out on you. It's like, hey, I didn't hit it into the woods. You did, buddy. Like that kind of thing. But yeah, I did that for a long time. And then I worked in the supermarket.
Oh yeah, what anything special there?
Well, we did get we got robbed one time where they have like the little courtesy desk where people can get change or they cash their checks or whatever. So I was in college and I was in charge of the cashiers and the baggers, and I'm walking away from the courtesy desk and this guy taps me on the knee. I turn and he's got a ski mask and he's got a shotgun in a pillowcase. And he's like, oh, don't move or whatever. And he goes over to the courtesy desk and he's like, freeze, don't move or whatever. So there's this customer shopping around aisle 1 and he turns and tells her not to move or whatever. And she just gives him a look and keeps shopping down the next aisle.
This was in Boston?
Yeah.
Well, there you go.
And then, So he gets this bag of checks, which is no good to him. He gets like $200. And then he goes running out the door and he's staring at me because I'm in charge, I guess. I mean, it's a skeleton crew. It's like 11:30 at night or whatever.
Don't be modest.
And they have you have that mat, the electronic mat that you step on the door. Well, he goes running out the indoor, and you can't go out the indoor. So he goes running out and just smashes his face against the door.
Wow.
And he's kind of stunned, and then he turns to me and he's like, "You can chase me if you want, but I will light you up." Is what he said, and then he ran out the outdoor.
Wow.
That is not a pleasant experience to run into a glass door. I've done it like twice in my life.
Were you robbing a supermarket?
No, but when I was like,
Why are you wearing a ski mask right now, Carl?
Exactly. Once I was like 10, I was at a party in Beverly Hills. I started young, like Drew Barrymore. No, but I was at a party that my aunt had dragged me to, and so running around with some kids and I didn't realize that the door was shut rather than open. And so in front of people, including, I remember Dudley Moore was there and just laughed his ass off. Spam! Straight into the glass. It just like spun around backwards and hit the floor. And it was just laughing. And Dudley's like, oh, look at that kid. I was like, yeah, I've seen half your movies that really, you shouldn't be but yeah.
As comics, I'm pretty sure we've all had bad club owner or booker
Sure.
stories.
Oh my gosh, sure.
I would love to hear some of these stories from each one.
I think we all have bad Dudley Moore stories.
Anytime you've seen a movie other than Arthur or 10 is a bad Dudley Moore
Don't speak ill of
story.
the dead, Carl.
Okay, all right. Well, he mocked me when I was 10. I want revenge. Anyway, so what's a bad Booker story for you? Like, just a good call by John there.
Oh, I don't know. I mean, there was always, terrible. You would just get booked in these awful places. I remember this one place where other people wouldn't show up and you'd have to just go along and just keep going.
Oh, yeah.
And I remember ordering a beer on stage as I'm stalling, and it was like $1.50 or whatever, or $2.50. But I remember having to pay on stage in front of the crowd, and even the crowd felt bad. Like, this boy, yes, it's like
We can't handle this later.
Yes, yeah. There's some.
We don't trust comics.
There was
We know the kind.
and I did work a couple of rough rooms where twice somebody was heckling me and somebody else and the audience beat them up. Like that happened. So I never got in a fight on the stage, but there were 2 times when someone came to my defense
On your behalf.
Goons in the audience.
I guess I did.
Planted a
Apparently,
goon.
I know
Goons.
it was kind of funny that.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Hopefully you guys will believe that I learned my lesson so that I don't sound just horrible why I even brought this up. But one time I was working at Zanies in Chicago, and this is like mid-'90s. I was just starting out, late 90s, I'd say. And I was, back then people weren't like gay jokes, things like, the comics were still getting away with making it sound like, oh, they're dumb people or weird people.
I like where this is going.
And so I had like a few lines about like, oh, that's so gay or whatever. And there was this table of guys that started just going, like laughing as loud as possible, fake laugh, and then doing this smattering of golf applause. And they did it over and over, like purposely, like trying to just make me feel really uncomfortable. And I realized that's, that they were a group of gay guys. And afterwards, and so I wound up like just slinking off the stage and going, ooh, I don't ever want to do that again. And after the show, they came up and said, Sal, did you learn your lesson? And I was like, yeah. And so I wound up changing my repertoire. So it was a valuable learning experience.
Your worst story is being heckled with sarcastic applause. That's not that bad.
That's not my
not
worst,
bad.
but I'm saying it was. It was definitely weird and awkward.
Wow.
I had to do a set in front of 2 TVs that the owner of the bar I was performing in didn't turn off.